In this lesson, I'm going to highlight some of the features that we're going to look at in more detail later in the course. We're going to look at 4 particular examples here. I have 4 sample documents in the Video to Brain starter folder. So I have the first one, my document with styles. I'm going to open all of these pages in Chrome initially. Chrome is my favorite browser at the moment. I've used Internet Explorer version 9 and Firefox quite a lot, but I found that Chrome generally tends to give me the best support in terms of desktop browsers. So let me open up this document first of all. Here it is in Chrome. So what this example illustrates is the idea of semantic tags. So in traditional HTML, such as HTML4, if you wanted to define the structure of a web page, you would just use elements like div, and you'd give each one an ID, such as navigation area, or header, or footer. And that's okay, but with HTML5 you can go further and you can use semantic tags that have more meaning. So for example, there's a semantic tag called header, which allows you to group together the various headers at the top. There's another semantic tag called nav, which allows you to define a navigation area where you have your hyperlinks. And then we also have semantic tags called section and article, which allow you to break down the overall structure of the page into categories. And then we have another one called aside, which allows you to define help information, for example, figure, and fig caption for images. So these are the semantic tags, very useful. We'll have a look at that later on in the course and see how it works in detail. Next up, I'm going to show you query selector demo.html. I'll open that one in Chrome as well. What I have here is a series of table columns and table rows. And if I hover over one of the table cells and press the enter key, then I use the HTML5 query selector API. This is a new way of locating content in a document easily by using a CSS type style rule. So rather than using APIs such as document.getElement by tag name or document.getElement by ID, you can now say query selector and specify a CSS rule to select some specific elements using convoluted CSS syntax. It's very powerful. I'll just hover over the US flag and press enter again. You can see. So I have a CSS rule there that says find the table cell that currently has the mouse focus or the mouse hover, and then grab that HTML and copy it down below. Okay, so that's a very powerful technique as well. Third example I'm going to show you in this lesson is talking about input controls. So I'll open this one up in Chrome initially. The idea behind this example is to illustrate the new input control types in HTML5. So as well as having text boxes and text areas, HTML5 also has date, time, date time, week, month, and then we have numbers and ranges, telephone numbers, email addresses, and URLs and colors. Unfortunately, Chrome doesn't do a particularly good job of displaying these controls. They all seem to be like text boxes, really. So what I'll do is I'll go back into Internet Explorer and I'll open it in Opera, because Opera is actually pretty good for this part of the example. So you can see here that Opera does show a date as a pop-up. So I can choose a date and I can enter a time, such as 11:13. That's the current time here, like so. And I can choose a whole month. I can choose a week. I can enter a number and use the spin control to increase it. I can select a number in a range. I can enter telephone number, email address, and URL. And there's an element of validation that goes on as well with these controls. I can choose a color. And I can enter a search string. So it's actually quite important for you to bear that in mind, that some features will be supported better on some browsers than others. And there's APIs that you can use to check whether particular features are supported on the browser that you happen to be using at that time. Alright, the last example I wanted to look at was accessible forms.html. HTML5 provides an accessibility API for assistive technologies such as screen readers. So people who have visual impairment would use a screen reader to read out audibly some additional text to help them navigate the document. So what I've done here is I've linked the first text box with this label. So a screen reader, as soon as I tab into that control, the screen reader would know to read this out to to the user to help them understand what they're meant to be typing in. So let's say Cardiff. So there are various different techniques there for accessibility built into the HTML5 specification. Right, well that was just a whistle-stop tour through some of the features in HTML5. We're going to look at all of this in more detail as we go through the course and examine the code behind all of these examples, plus lots more beside.